Hello, welcome to another episode of the Daily Seeds of Flourishing. So on a Tuesday, I spend the majority of Tuesday exploring various philosophers. The structure currently is that I'm working my way through the DK, the philosophy book, one of those big ideas, simply explained books. And I've been doing that for quite a while now. I just do one philosopher per week, and I mainly do that on a Tuesday. And this week it's Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Now, often before I go through the chapter, I'll just do a little bit of reading around, just get a bit of a broad idea, because in the DK book, if you're familiar with it, it tends to just focus on a particular quote from the philosopher and then sort of expands out a little bit from that quote. And I bear the quote in mind, but I just sometimes like to get a slightly different view on it than maybe in the book, and so that just informs my reading a little bit. And I'm also looking out for terms that may or may not come up in the reading, but terms that I just haven't come across before, and I can't work out necessarily from first principles by breaking down the words. So I was looking through Maurice Merleau-Ponty's entry on Wikipedia, and I was sort of reading about this, so I'll just read it out for you. It says, at the core of Merleau-Ponty's philosophy is a sustained argument for the foundational role that perception plays in the human experience of the world. Merleau-Ponty understands perception to be an ongoing dialogue between one's lived body and the world which it perceives, in which perceivers passively and actively strive to express the perceived world in concert with others. He was the only major phenomenologist of the first half of the 20th century to engage extensively with the sciences. It is through this engagement that his writings became influential in the project of naturalizing phenomenology, in which phenomenologists use the results of psychology and cognitive science. Now, I'm familiar with the term phenomenology, but I'd noticed this term called embodied phenomenology. And as a result of going down that avenue, if you like, I came across a term I didn't recognise, which was something called enactivism. So let's just look at this term here. And certainly once I've read the chapter and worked through the Merleau-Ponty stuff today, I'm going to take a closer look at aspects of enactivism, because it also has interesting aspects on AI. And you'll see in a moment when I read through this, I've heard various speakers on AI talk about certain aspects of the physicality of an AI and how that might affect, or enhance its capacity to learning. So enactivism is a position in cognitive science that argues that cognition arises through a dynamic interaction between an acting organism and its environment. It claims that the environment of an organism is brought about or enacted by the active exercise of that organism's sensory motor processes, I think that is. Sensory motor processes, yeah. The key point then is that the species brings forth and specifies its own domain of problems. This domain does not exist out there in an environment that acts as a landing pad for organisms that somehow drop or parachute into the world. Instead, living beings and their environment stand in relation to each other through mutual specification or codetermination. Organisms do not passively receive information from their environments, which they then translate into internal representations. Natural cognitive systems participate in the generation of meaning, engaging in transformational and not merely informational interactions. They enact a world. These authors suggest that the increasing emphasis upon enactive terminology presages a new era in thinking about cognitive science. How the actions involved in activism relate to age-old questions about free will remain a topic of active debate. So I'm just going to go down to the AI section. And so this is what sort of piqued my interest when I saw this. The ideas in activism regarding how organisms engage with their environment have interested those involved in robotics and man-machine interfaces. The analogy is drawn that a robot can be designed to interact and learn from its environment in a manner similar to the way an organism does, and a human can interact with a computer-aided design tool or database using an interface that creates an inactive environment for the user. That is, all the user's tactile, auditory and visual capabilities are enlisted in a mutually explorative engagement, capitalizing upon all the user's abilities and not at all limited to cerebral engagement. There's some good words in there. In these areas, it is common to refer to affordances of a design concept, the idea that an environment or an interface affords opportunities for inaction, and good design involves optimizing the role of such affordances. So I think that's really interesting. Of course, someone listening to this probably knows all about this already, but I had no idea of, a connection, if you like, between the ideas of, or some of the ideas of Maurice Merleau-Ponty, certainly his core philosophy, and AI, until I started to sort of read around a little bit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this morning's today's philosophical studies. So thanks again for watching this. I hope this has been enlightening, and I hope this helps create your own seeds of flourishing, or not, as the case may be, because you can choose to not go down a particular rabbit hole if it's not of interest. And I will see you in the next video.